minutes while she's getting ready. I was going to sing Gauranga Bolite Habe as we're speaking from Caitanya Caritamrita today.
I don't know if I'm meant to do Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Veda Chandra Jaya Gauravata Vrinda. 3 times or? Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Veda Chandra Jaya Gauravata Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Veda Chandra Jaya Gauravata Vrinda. We're reading from Caitanya Caritamrita, Adi-lila, chapter 7, text 150. Ei mate tan savara kshami aparada Savakare Krishna namakari la prasada. Ei mate tan savara kshami aparada Savakare Krishna namakari la prasada. Word for word, ei mate, in this way. Tansavara, of all the sannyasis. Shami, excusing. Aparada, offense. Savakare, all of them. Krishna Nama, the holy name of Krishna. Karila, gave. Prasada, as mercy. Thus Lord Chaitanya excused all the offenses of the Mayavadi sannyasis and very mercifully blessed them with Krishna Nam. Purport. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the mercy incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is addressed by Rupa Goswami as Mahavadandaya Avatar, or the most magnanimous incarnation. Srila Rupa Goswami also says, Karuna Yavatirna Kalo. It's only by his mercy that he has descended in this age of Kali. This is exemplified. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not like to see Mayavadi sannyasis because he thought of them as offenders to the lotus feet of Krishna. But here he excuses them. Tan Savara Kshami Aparad. This is an example in preaching. Apani Achari. In preaching. Apani Achari Bhakti Sikaimu Savare. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu teaches us that those whom preachers meet are almost all offenders who are opposed to Krishna consciousness, but it's the preacher's duty to convince them of the Krishna consciousness movement and then induce them to chant the Hare Krishna mantra. Our propagation of the Sankirtan movement is continuing despite many opponents, and people are taking this chanting process even in remote parts of the world like Africa by inducing the offenders to chant the Hare Krishna mantra. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exemplified the success of the Krishna consciousness movement. We should follow very respectfully in the footsteps of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and there is no doubt that we shall be successful in our attempts. So I have to admit that I'm not very familiar with Caitanya Caritamrita. I normally read more Bhagavatam. Actually, the only things that I know about Caitanya Caritamrita is sometimes I come to class or I hear some recordings. But every time that I read or hear something about the Adi-lila chapter 7, I'm really fascinated by it, because normally we see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as someone who has ecstatic symptoms for God, and all his pastimes are so elevated, talking about the love between Radha and Krishna. And so I'm not very like you have to be at a certain level in order to understand all those pastimes. But when I hear about the side of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu philosopher, I find it really interesting and fascinating, because we don't usually talk so much about that side of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But here we can see how he goes, instead of going in the assembly of the Mayavadis and say, oh, you all demons, offenders, go away, we are superior to you, and putting them down, he takes them gradually with logic and rationality. He takes them to the point of chanting Hare Krishna. Although the impersonalists, I was reading a little bit before, they were just saying that chanting Hare Krishna is just for fanatics and sentimentals. So he took them to the point of actually chanting the Mahamantra. So we can see that actually, like Prabhupada said in the purport, we can learn from that. And actually, if we like to talk to people about Bhakti philosophy or Vaishnava philosophy, we can read this Adi-lila chapter 7 and learn a lot from it. So yeah, that's one realization that I have, that to have a sentimental approach to Bhakti philosophy, it doesn't really convince people who are, I mean, I'm not going to say intelligent, but who have intellectual inclinations, because if you don't give, like here, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is giving very reasonable arguments. And so I was very curious to see the evolution from Buddha, Lord Buddha, when he came and he said there is no God, there is only karma, to the point of Achintya Veda Veda Tattva, which is there is God, there is a living entity, and we are same, and at the same time we are different. So I found a book. There is a book in the shop that is really interesting. It's written by a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, which is one of my favorite writers, Stephen Rosen. And because the way he writes is very informative, and at the same time he doesn't write from a religious or sectarian point of view. He just informs in an objective way and according to different scriptures. So he talks. Like, for example, he gives, if you sometimes you wonder which book you can give someone who is new to this philosophy, and in order to introduce all the concepts that we have, this is a great book. It's called The Hidden Glory of India, and he touches everything. He touches how we went from Buddha to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, what is Maya, what is Durga, all the demigods, who is Radha, all the different acharyas. So here I found the evolution from Buddha, who came and said, no, there is no God, and don't listen to the Vedas. There is only karma, and every action has a reaction, and so just follow me. And his main teachings were ahimsa, non-violence. Non-violence is not only non-physical violence, but is also mental, or like, for example, psychological abuse can be is also violence, and the way sometimes we think about others. So ahimsa has many levels. So sometimes we think we're vegetarians, we are fully ahimsa, but sometimes it's not like that, because Hitler was also a vegetarian, and he was not really ahimsa. He was doing a lot of violence. So Buddha appeared at that time, and I did a little bit of research on the internet, Wikipedia, etc. According to the Bhagavatam, he comes because at the time when he came, when he was there, with the excuse of the Vedic scriptures, people were just mechanically, fanatically also following. And I read also that actually most people did not have any idea of Sanskrit, but the priests and the Brahmins were just doing things without the mass of people understanding what was going on, and they were doing a lot of slaughter and killing of animals and everything. So that's why actually, by reading this, I can see the logical and scientific sequence of the whole philosophical school. So Buddha appears at the beginning of Kali Yuga, and he says, don't worry about the Vedas, there is no God, there is only action-reaction, and the main cause of your suffering is the fact that you desire. And if you stop desiring, you stop the wheel of karma and you get free from suffering. So that was his main teaching. And then after that, Sankara appeared. So sometimes we speak about Sankaracharya, and so I find so fascinating that so many chapters and quotes are talking about Sankaracharya, but we don't really know who Sankaracharya was. So we know that he was an incarnation of Shiva, and sometimes we hear say that he came to confuse people, to confuse the masses, and then I was wondering, but why? Why will an incarnation of Shiva will come to confuse the masses? So it's simply a sequence in the evolution of to take living entities to the point of understanding that there is a God and there is a Jiva, and there is the connection between them, and the highest ecstasy or happiness is to have a relationship of service with God. So, is anyone here familiar with the evolution of the different philosophical schools from Buddha to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Can you please say it? No? Okay. Bad. Okay. So no, because I'm trying to do this, it's almost 8 o'clock, and I'm trying to do like an interactive that sometimes is better for remembering concepts, to do an interactive thing. But anyways, so the evolution is from Buddha to Sankaracharya. Sankaracharya came, he said, no, there is God, and we are one. We are all the same as God. But actually he came because to support Buddhist philosophy, because he said, okay, you cannot just follow, there is the Vedas, we have to pay attention to the Vedas. He gave value to the Vedas, but at the same time he said, but you have to, that's what I read in Wikipedia, he put a lot of emphasis in saying that actually you can reach moksha or liberation, but you have to use logic, experience, your own experience, and the scriptures, not just blindly following the scriptures. You have to use the three combined together. Then after Sankaracharya, Ramanujacharya came, which he was in the line of Sankaracharya, and I was reading that actually he's from Lakshmi Sampradaya, and he is the main proponent of bhakti. But he did it in a way that it didn't look exactly like bhakti. It looks like a little bit like impersonalism, because he was from the school of Sankaracharya, impersonal philosophy. But at the same time, he said, no, there is a soul, and there is God. And then after him, Madhvacharya came, and he supported the Ramanuja thing, but he said he started the Dvaita. Sankaracharya was Advaita, which is monism, and Madhva saying, no, there is a God, there is a soul, but we are always different. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared, and he said, yeah, we are different, but at the same time we are the same, which is Achintya Veda Tattva. So I'm finishing the class here, and if anyone has any comments or corrections or more information about the subject.
Why is Luchatan considered the most merciful incarnation?
Because he came in Kali Yuga, in which is considered the age of degradation, in which there is no spiritual. Like, for example, I was reading the other day the 12th canto, in which it describes Kali Yuga, and basically to have everything in the Mahamantra, like all the sacrifices done in Treta Yuga was the age of sacrifice. Yeah? All the meditation done in Satya Yuga, all the deity worship done in Dwapara Yuga, everything, you can attain everything, all the results of all that within the Mahamantra. So to come here and give love for God, which was not, it looks like it was not so easily available in other ages, is quite compassionate. So I will say that's it, but if someone else has other answer or...
Just to make a point in relation to the transition from Buddha to Caitanya Mahaprabhu, the point we always make very clear is when Sankaracharya, the most important thing he did is re-establish the authority of the Vedas when Lord Buddha rejected the Vedas. So that he paved the path for the Acharyas to, on the basis of the Vedanta Sutras, establish the proper understanding, and that's culminated in this chapter here, which Mahaprabhu is speaking Vedanta Sutra, which was given a murky, they received a murky version by their spiritual master Sankaracharya, and Caitanya Mahaprabhu is now given a clear, direct meaning of Vedanta Sutra, so that's the point.
Yep. Thank you.
Prabhupada explains that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the most magnanimous incarnation because all previous incarnations, they killed the demons. But Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu didn't kill the demons because practically everyone, as you pointed out, everyone in Kali Yuga is a demon with no spiritual qualifications. So he came and killed their demoniac spirit, and Srila Lord says, no bestowed what no other incarnation ever bestowed before. Pure love, the opportunity for everyone with even no qualifications to achieve pure love for Krishna.
Yeah.
Broke open the storehouse of love and Godhead and inundated the whole land, whether they're pious or simple or women, children, everyone's qualified.
Thank you. Another point that I would like to touch in this class is the importance of physical service. Sometimes we confuse a little bit between sadhana bhakti and the service that we do to the community or the service that we do for the mission of Prabhupada. And I was reading a little bit, like sometimes we talk a lot about the differences and how Ashtanga Yoga is not good and how it's not really clear when we talk about other philosophies or other type of yoga if we appreciate it or what is the difference or why bhakti is the best. So I was actually reading about Ashtanga Yoga, and it's so fascinating to see that actually Ashtanga Yoga was there. Even in the Bhagavatam you can see that Ashtanga Yoga was there to take you to the same point that now Sadhana Bhakti is there. Because for example, Dhruva Maharaj was practicing Ashtanga Yoga. Narada Muni, when he was a child and he went to the forest and Narada Muni came to teach him, he didn't say just chant Hare Krishna and go around dancing with mridangas and everything. He said to control the breath, to do the positions. So if anyone is familiar with the steps of Ashtanga Yoga, the yoga of the 8 limbs, which is yamas and niyamas, regulations. So I was looking for a quote in which we see also the yamas and niyamas of bhakti, and if you want to have a look in the 11th canto when Krishna talks to Uddhava, he quotes the yamas and niyamas. He asks what are the regulations, and he quotes all the yamas and niyamas, which are even more than Ashtanga Yoga. But actually, going through the Ashtanga Yoga steps, through the limbs of yoga, you can see that actually one of the niyamas is Isvara Pranidhana, which means total absorption or not service, devotion to God, which it cannot be impersonal because, and also Samadhi, which is the last step or limb of Ashtanga Yoga, which is absorption or total immersion of God. So that takes me to the conclusion that actually we do bhakti, and we have, if you go to the different steps of bhakti and limbs, you can see that actually it's very similar, but it's done in a very easy way. Like for example, pratyahara, in which is control of the senses in yoga, in Ashtanga Yoga, we have Shravana and Kirtan. So we do use the senses, but the control that we make is that everything we do is in relation to God. Why do we have so many regulations? Like sometimes new people ask or guests, why so many? You have to wash your hands every time, you cannot eat when you are cooking and this and that. At the end, everything is taking you to control the mind And because without controlling the mind, there is no question of yoga, bhakti or astanga. So at the beginning, we say, yeah, eat prasada and you get purified and do different things without worrying too much about the control of the senses. But in reality, as Rupa Goswami describes in the Nectar of Instruction, you do have to control your senses if you want to go further into bhakti. So I was just taking the asanas and pranayama limb of Astanga Yoga and compare it to service. And in reality, if we don't do physical service, if we don't do service for the community or the mission of Prabhupada, there is no question of really understanding Bhakti Yoga. So we can read a lot or do a lot of personal sadhana, but in reality, there is a minimum of service that we need to do for the community. This is my experience, and also from reading, I understand that without service, we can be in a corner reading and learning by heart all the verses and doing our own japa, etc. But if there is no a physical service towards the mission of Prabhupada, from my point of view, we will not make the right or the real amount of evolution in spiritual life. So I'm going to end here, and if anyone wants to say anything else.
I just had a question about service and the mercy of kind of Lord Caitanya and the devotees. So we are in the age of Kali Yuga, and he is the most merciful incarnation of Krishna at the moment. And so we all have an opportunity to serve, and Srila Prabhupada used to say a lot about how we're not this body. And there's that pastime where there's a woman who's taking darshan of Jagannath, and she doesn't see the Lord and kind of bumping him or something. And then Lord Chaitanya, his disciples chastising her. He says, no, like she has so much devotion to you, and we can't imitate. But I'm just wondering at what point, like within our movement, sometimes you can be denied the opportunity to serve in a certain way because of your body. And I was just wondering, the devotees are quite merciful, so at what point does that mercy supersede that designation of just let's be merciful and to give everyone equal opportunity to push on Lord Chaitanya's movement if they have qualities in certain areas? It's just a bit of a big question, but I was wondering what you thought.
So can you give me an example of service that women are not really allowed to do?
Well, maybe it's a bit of a subtle thing, like maybe they might not be given the same amount of opportunities or facilitation, whereas someone else in a different body might be encouraged in a different way and given a lot of facility, or just maybe even just being restricted by not accepted into a certain service because of their body. I understand there are things we have to be respectful of, but
I understand your question, but for me, in order to, with my limitations, in order to answer, I need to know like a concrete example, because also I can see sometimes that there is differences in different temples. Like for example, here I find that Ajita, he really facilitates women doing things. So if you tell me like an example, I can give you an answer.
Like maybe I actually don't want to give an example, but I mean everyone knows those examples within, and I'm not criticizing.
Like for example, being at the back of when the date is open?
Like that actually, like someone fulfilling their devotional potential and being able to use that in a way that is, it's okay, no worries. Yeah.
Krishna Rupa, maybe you can say something?
I was just going to say that there's kind of two aspects to this, and one is that, like, you know, the devotees, they have to be able to serve in a way that is, you know, that is, 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 in many temples there is an egalitarian attitude that women can do this. The difference between respect and equity. Respect is listening to someone's opinion, for example, a woman's opinion. But true equity is giving every woman the facility to express their opinion. So there's kind of subtle differences between respect and equity. So I think in this temple, for example, it's extremely egalitarian. Women lead kirtan, we have a beautiful kirtan led by Anasuya and expert Vedanta prayer by Patanjali. And, women give classes. We've given a very nice class. So in this temple is I believe, equal opportunity. In Australia, I believe there's, of course we can always make more progress, but, our National Council has, appointed women in varying roles of responsibility. In other temples it might be a little bit less. So there's that aspect where our managers and leaders need to open up pathways of spiritual advancement for both genders. But there's also the understanding that Krishna induces and Krishna sanctions devotional service. So if we have a particular service that we would really hanker to be able to offer to Krishna, we should also pray to him. Krishna, please, I would really like to do this particular service. I feel that I'm being a little bit blocked. Please give me the intelligence so I can explore that, how to do that service. So it's, managers and leaders, they have to give equity to both genders. But for ourselves as individuals, there's also the power of prayer.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I think also there is a practical thing, that women, we are much more emotional. So this is reality. And I've observed that, like, for example, so many men, or for example, from my point of view, I am more emotional than many men. Like, I see men coming here, giving a class, they're fine. I was almost about to pass out before I came here, so I can see, from I'm not saying that all women are more emotional, but in general, this is what I see. Like, for example, sometimes you see very intelligent women, then they get like overwhelmed by emotions, while men are more able to keep the distance from whatever emotion. So I think there is so many ingredients, and also sometimes like tradition. Like, for example, when we do the Govinda prayers, many guests, sometimes they come at the end, like sometimes it's so crowded and women are there like that and all the men are here spread all the way, and I think if I was an authority I would change that, because guests do not understand that, why all the women are at the end and all the men are here at the beginning. So this is like, and I think it's just tradition. Like in India sometimes they take tradition to the limit and they don't question it. So this is from my limited point of view. I think sometimes tradition, sometimes the nature of women is different from men. Men are more fearless in certain aspects. And sometimes in the scriptures we take intelligence and they say this is intelligence, when in reality we know that there's so many types of intelligence. Some people can be more creatively intelligent, some people can be more managerial intelligent. So sometimes because the scriptures were written very long time ago, and we are in Kali Yuga like 5,000 years after, so it's difficult to understand some concepts, and they've been translated into a few languages. So this is the only thing I can understand. Maybe you were referring to women being gurus or something, so I want to be a guru. No, no, not that. Okay.
More of a like we're not the body, so and ready for merciful. So how does the body get in the way of the crazy being merciful and giving?
Oh yeah.
Not that women live or anything like that.
Yeah.
On an individual basis, I would think.
Yeah, because we have the theory, the philosophy, and then when it comes to the practice, like for example, sometimes we sign everything, you serve, and then you ask them, can you give me a lift to town? I don't have a car. No, I can't, Also, I'm like, so I thought you were my servant, So we have the theory and then we have the practice, and sometimes there is a gap. And also I see that sometimes because we're doing sadhana bhakti, which is a practice, we confuse sadhana bhakti with the goal or prema bhakti, you know, and there is a big road from the practice to the reality or the goal, no? So I think there is that's my understanding. I just, before I finish, I would like to, because I was reading this and I was thinking, well, it looks like they are mixing Mayavad with impersonalism. So I would like to understand if there is a quote or a reference in the scriptures that differentiates Mayavads from impersonalists. Because here, I thought that Sankaracharya, was he a Mayavadi or was he an impersonalist? So what is the exact meaning of Mayavad? Oh, microphone.
Just in the process of handing it over, but my understanding is that impersonalists can merge into the Brahmajyoti, but Mayavads can't because they totally reject the existence of God or his effulgence. But I'm sure Krishna can comment.
But Sankaracharya, he said that God existed. Sankaracharya said God exists, but we are one with him. We are the same as him. So he didn't deny God. And these people here, these sannyasis, they are followers of Sankaracharya. So it looks like they were impersonalists.
Mayavadi means everything is Maya, including God. Everything is illusion, and we're all one. That's one understanding. Mayavadi. Impersonalists are bona fide transcendentalists also. They're attracted to music ganis, they're attracted to the impersonal aspect of God, but they don't deny the existence of God.
So these sannyasis here, they were the followers of Sankaracharya. Sankaracharya says there is God. He doesn't say there is no God.
But ultimately he said that because he's a devotee himself, that his philosophy was a Adi-lila philosophy. He twisted the meaning of Ananda Sutra and taught this impersonal Mayavad philosophy, which is the most offensive type of the most extreme personalist, where everything is Maya, illusion, God's illusion, illusion.
So God does not exist according to...
No, we are God ourselves.
Okay.
That's it. That's their idea that we are all God.
I have a morning walk conversation with
Yes, you do.
This was
Authority.
this is from a morning walk on April 2nd, 1975 in Mayapur. So they were asking the difference between Mayavadi and impersonalists, and Prabhupada said very little difference, but still there is a difference. Mayavadis means they are speaking that everything is Maya and Krishna is also Maya. And impersonalists means that they are thinking that to merge into the Brahmani effulgence is better than to keep our personal identity. That's a pretty straightforward explanation about the two differences.
And besides that, is there any quote in the Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita about the difference of Mayavad and...
This whole chapter has been about that.
Here,
Yeah.
but not in the Bhagavatam.
You know, you reference Maharaj in the Bhagavatam, and you reference it in the Bhagavatam on Mayavadi versus
I mean, I can't think top of my head. I mean, there's many in Caitanya Caritamrita, Caitanya Bhagavad, many. So you have to research and find
this chapter, read this whole chapter.
So it's all in Caitanya Caritamrita. Because in the Bhagavatam I didn't find any difference. They just speak about impersonal philosophy as they don't make a distinction. So then Buddha was not Mayavad philosophy then, because sometimes we hear Voidism. Okay, good. Yep. So, okay, almost about to finish. Anyone has any comment to make about the importance of physical service within sadhana bhakti?
There's a verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam, can't remember which canto lotus feet of Krishna, they fall back down to material existence. Is that the 10th canto? Yeah, so that's the some
Okay.
records.
Thanks. Thank you.
You were mentioning about Sadhana Bhakti and Ashtanga, right? Ashtanga.
Yeah.
So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he wrote in his book called Prema Pradip, and he has a summary kind of comparative essay on Ashtanga Yoga and Bhakti Yoga.
Okay.
So it's a nice book to read.
How is it called?
Prema Pradip.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
A reference to Gita just texted something. Just tell me to go to the 10th canto. Gita's asking us to go to 10th canto, chapter 2, prayers by the demigods, text 32. This is a Gita Prabhu on the 31, 32. Someone may say that aside from devotees who always seek shelter at the Lord's lotus feet, there are those who are not devotees but who have accepted different processes to attain salvation. What happens to them? In answer to this question, the Lord Brahma and the other demigods said, O lotus-eyed Lord, for the non-devotees who accept that, Gita again, it said, that, sorry, he's speaking as I'm reading. That's the verse Rupa quoted. That's the verse you quoted, Rupa. Let me keep reading that. O lotus-eyed Lord, although non-devotees who accept severe austerities and penances to achieve the highest position may think themselves liberated, their intelligence is impure. They fall down from their position of imagined superiority because they have no regard for the lotus feet of the Lord.
Thank you.
It's a comprehensive explanation of the level of the person.
So does anyone has anything to say about the importance of service in Bhakti Yoga? Not just sadhana bhakti, which is chanting your rounds and reading, but the importance of doing a certain amount of hours daily for advancement in Bhakti Yoga.
Prabhupada translated bhakti as not devotion, but devotional service.
Yeah, but sometimes people say, chanting my rounds is also service, and reading is also service. So could you say something about that? You want to say something? Please, Mataji.
Just one simple example. There was a devotee in Vrindavan. He would stand at the gate and he would chant prayers every morning. And he thought that Prabhupada would be pleased by this. One morning, Prabhupada asked him, he asked him to do something useful.
Thank you. Thanks.
Something needs sweeping, do something useful.
Thank you.
Also, Srila Prabhupada said one time it's not a club for lazy fellows. So he expected practical service from his disciples.
And he also said, work now, samadhi later, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which, yeah. So he really appreciated people who work for, because it's impossible if we have, like, let's say, a community in which we spend our time reading and chanting. How do you spread a movement or a mission or even a business? It's impossible.
Wonderful Jananda Prabhu, when he was attending a darshan, and Srila Prabhupada was hearing the spiritual master, and he was falling asleep, and the devotees were trying to nudge him awake. And Srila Prabhupada said, leave him alone, he does more work than all of you to put together.
Wow. Thank you. So just to recapitulate before we finish, we spoke about how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Srila Prabhupada also spoke about that in the purport. He said that if we want to learn how to defeat or how to convince people about Vaishnava philosophy, we need to read these 7th chapter, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in a very intelligent way, he leads the impersonal the impersonal sannyasis, to the point of the importance of chanting the mantra Hare Krishna. So it's very important to read this, and I'm going to read it myself, because actually I just read a few verses, but I'm going to read the whole chapter again. This is one point we made, and another point is how the whole philosophy school evolved from Buddha to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who was the proponent, I read in this book, the proponent of Achintya Veda Aveda Tattva. So he said, yes, we are one with God, and we are also different in a very inconceivable way. Yeah, is that the word? Unconceivable? Yeah. So that's another point we made, and I wanted to touch what real humility is, because sometimes we confuse humility with fake humility or insecurity or low self-esteem. But actually Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was really aware, he was humble himself, but he was aware that he knew more than the impersonalist or Mayavadis sannyasis, and because he had that knowledge, he was able to defeat that philosophy. But if he had thought, oh no, everyone knows more than me, I know nothing, I cannot do it, then it was impossible. So just to finish, I will say that actually real humility is to be aware of your capacity, but at the same time, you don't go around promoting and saying to people, I know much more than you and you know nothing. So yeah, maybe next time, if I have the opportunity again, I can talk about the humility thing, because it's a theme that keeps coming in our philosophy. Humility, lower than the grass in the street, more tolerant than a tree. But then it will be interesting to go into the analysis of what that tolerance and humility means, because sometimes can be misunderstood.
If you just say another verse in relation to service, I'm just going from. He says, you just send a quote, this is a quote from the Adi-lila, chapter 19, verse 212. Quote, these are the words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Quote again, when one's intelligence is fully attached to my lotus feet, but one does not render practical service, one has attained a stage called Shantarati or Sama. Without Shantarati, attachment to Krishna is very difficult to achieve.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, Jai Srila Prabhupada, Caitanya Caritamrita ki Jai. Thank you. And if anyone is interested in this book, it's in the shop. It's very, very interesting and very easy read, and it touches all the points of Vaishnava philosophy. Thank you.